It was an ugly loss for the Chargers in their second preseason game against the Saints, but there were a couple of young defenders who really stood out.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer, and we've been covering the Chargers now for 8 seasons together, but this is our 6th year as host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you guys, as always, for making this your first listen, and to make sure you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel, and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, what do we got today?
Today we get into the Chargers and Saints preseason game number 2, and JT Woods had himself a heck of a ball game. So did Daiyan Henley. He was flying all over the place. Easton Stick, on the other hand, an up and down, mostly down performance.
Yeah, a lot to get into in an ugly game, but I do want to start by saying this episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today to get 10% off your first month. And David, last week, we saw a pretty good game from JT Woods. I don't think either of us were upset with it outside of the dumb penalty. And a really quiet game for Daiyan Henley. And let's start with him, because I think with Daiyan Henley, we knew the road he was going to have to kind of go through to get on the field defensively. And we saw a little bit tonight where he kind of stands in the pecking order because the other two linebackers, Nick Niemann and Amen Ogbongbemiga, both didn't suit up for this game, kind of solidifying, where their spot is on this roster, which gave Daiyan Henley a lot more snaps, though. That was the bright side of it, and I thought he really, really took advantage of it. I was super excited about the game we saw from the Chargers' third-round rookie.
I completely agree. I mean, and I think with Amen and Nick both dealing kind of with some injuries there, and the Chargers want to kind of hold them out, this opened up an opportunity for Daiyan to get a start, and I really feel like we got to see the entirety of Daiyan Henley's skill set tonight. I feel like you saw the open field tackling, you saw the instincts against the run, you saw how fluid he is in pass coverage, save for one play where he kind of got caught. But other than that, him rushing the passer, a strong blitz. You saw what he brings to the table. He was all over the field. That's kind of what you feel like a linebacker should do, and he played like it tonight. He really, really had a strong performance.
Yeah, it was one play on a wheel route, and it was a great throw by Jameis Winston, right? He was actually in pretty good coverage and ended up being a big play down the field. Both the guys we're going to talk about tonight had a lot of really good plays and then had some plays that they wish they could have back. But I think it's just the absence of the big plays and also dealing with rookie mistakes is not what you want. Like, at least if you're going to be putting up with those rookie mistakes and second-year mistakes, for JT Woods, you want to see the good side of that too. You want to see what they're bringing to the table, and I thought Daiyan Henley showed a bunch of that tonight. I mean, I thought specifically when he was covering running backs in the flats, he was doing really, really well to not only get there quickly, but find a way to bring those guys down every time. I can't think of a missed tackle from Daiyan Henley in this game. The stats of it haven't come out yet, but really, really good, solid tackler, which is something we would hope would translate from the collegiate level to the NFL level, because it's not like this just started. He was a really, really good tackler at Washington State and even before that, and he finishes with 9 tackles and half a sack. Really came in quickly on that pass rush, right, but ended up kind of overrunning things a little bit, but did enough to kind of trip him up, and Carlo Kemp finished things with the sack, but does get that half a sack. And I also just thought for him, the read and react, the one play where he just worked his way through all of the traffic in the middle of the field, all the offensive linemen and everything, found a way to get a tackle for a minimal gain. I just really, really liked the game from him. But he did have the one down play. It was kind of the same story for JT Woods, a second-year safety who, especially with, Alohi Gilman nursing an injury, it's starting to become clear, that how important this position is on the Chargers defense, and he really did need these snaps. I'm glad he played, David. And I thought outside of one kind of big play he allowed, I thought he had a really good game.
Yeah, I think JT Woods really kind of garnered up some confidence throughout his play in the joint practices. I feel like he made a ton of plays, feel like he was really feeling himself, feeling good. And I feel he took that into tonight's game. And I feel like he played like a man possessed. I mean, I feel like he was one of the best defenders on the field in the first half. JT Woods was everywhere. He was all over the field. You really got to see his instincts and coverage, the speed, and the tackling in space. That's the most exciting thing for me for JT Woods. It wasn't all good, right? He had a couple of things that, he has to work on. But as an overall performance, I think, honestly, I'm starting it's starting to build some confidence in me believing that he's going to take a leap in his sophomore season. I see a lot of things that I like, and I hope that continues to translate for JT Woods.
Well, the thing about JT Woods is we know that the physical traits are there. He's a 4.3 guy. He's a guy that was tied for the NCAA lead in interceptions coming out of college. And now you're seeing some of that ball production a little bit. I thought he was quick to a few of those tackles. The big play that he messed up was the Saints ended up running a wide receiver screen. They had two receivers out there to block in front of the running back. He ended up taking the inside angle and just really took a terrible angle at it. Ended up not being able to make the play, and it ended up turning into a big gain. And that was the Chargers' defense's problem really the whole night. I mean, it was super solid, but they failed to take advantage of their opportunities. Right there, that's an opportunity to get a tackle for no gain, maybe even a tackle for loss. Wasn't able to take advantage of it. Later on in the game, a couple balls in the air that somebody's got to come down with, but it can't be the Saints receiver, right? And too many times the Chargers seem to be on the bad end of that. And, Jameis Winston's pure gumption to even try to attempt some of those throws with how good some of that coverage was. But it was a lot of big plays and, some disconnected plays from the Chargers defense, especially in the second half. I thought that's where you saw some real breakdowns to some big plays. But I did think for JT Woods, this is a huge step in the right direction. I mean, last week we saw him fill in a couple of aggressive, in the hole run stops. This week we saw him out there for a much more extended period in the first half. And I did think that the confidence, the swagger that he was playing with was definitely showing. I mean, on the last play, the Saints try to run a screen on 3rd and forever. He knifes in and makes sure it doesn't end up being a big play. He makes a very sure tackle on a tight end who is much bigger than him and ended up getting the Chargers defense off the field on 3rd down. And right before that, that same tight end had a catch over the middle, made the catch, and JT Woods did a great job fighting through the hands, not giving up on the play, and forcing an incompletion. Seeing those things, I think, is spectacular from JT Woods, even if you're saying, hey, you can't do that because if you miss one tackle like the one he did, that can turn into a house call, especially when the real game starts. So one other guy I think we should point out here, David, that I thought had a couple of kind of flashy plays, and I felt like the Chargers coaching staff got him out of there as quickly as possible, was Tuli Tuipulotu. I thought he looked really good, had a couple tackles, one tackle for loss where he made Saints tackle Trevor Penning look really bad because he got beat so badly to the inside. I liked what I saw from Tuli. I mean, it looks like he belongs here, especially setting that physical edge, making plays in the run game.
The more I see Tuli out there on the field, the more excited I get. I mean, he really, really looks like the real deal. He looks stout on the outside. He sets that physical edge. He doesn't not allow himself to be beat. And he's so fast. He is quick, man. He is really, really tough to be able to get your hands on. And he has the strength and he has the pass rush repertoire to put moves together to really get you off balance. And I think that's what, really excites me about Tuli. I mean, coming in, you see the traits right away. And you know that if he's thrust into action, I think you just feel a little bit more confident that his skill set is going to translate a little bit more immediately for the Chargers.
It's similar to JT Woods, right? Obviously, a little bit different parts of their development. But I think both guys, neither of them you're expecting to go out there and start, right? It's not like I have a full vote of confidence if one of your big guys goes down that Tuli can go out there and play the entire season on the edge. But you're getting more confidence that in the regular kind of swing of things, in a rotation, in specific packages, in the case for JT Woods, you feel better about it. And these are two gigantic question marks, especially because the Chargers really needed edge depth after this year, and they went out and got Tuli in the second round. And the safety position behind Alohi Gilman was a huge question mark as well, even Alohi Gilman to a certain extent, right? Because from a small sample size standpoint, we haven't seen a bunch. But Alohi Gilman should be back and ready to start. JT Woods still will get on the field now, and they're even in those situations with Derwin James moving around as much as he does. Like you said, he's starting to build a little bit more confidence, and that's a nice feeling because JT Woods looked out of place a lot of times last year in the preseason.
Very much so.
I mean, the tackles he missed once he actually got in the game in the regular season were just as alarming. So it's nice to see not just making plays on the football, a level of physicality that we didn't see in the past, in last year. And, a little bit of confidence to kind of back it up, slamming his helmet on the sideline after making a big play, right? Obviously very animated. Got to keep it in check. But I'd much rather him be playing with that edge, playing confidently, playing aggressively, going out there and trying to make big plays. And I think we kind of saw the start of that a little bit for JT Woods, which I think is an exciting step in the development of a second-year safety they spent a third-round pick on. So it wasn't all, rainbows and butterflies for the Chargers, though, David. I mean, the Chargers did lose in this game. Not important, really, in the grand scheme of things. But I think Stick's play was a little bit concerning. Easton Stick definitely came back to earth a little bit. And I think part of the reason was is the running game totally kind of disappeared for big portions of this game, including Elijah Dotson. I guess he is mortal, right? I guess he's not going to be averaging 15 yards per carry every game. So we're going to talk about that coming up right after this. First, though, I do need to tell you guys that this show is brought to you by BetterHelp. Sometimes in life, we're faced with tough choices and the path forward isn't always clear. So whether you're taking decisions around your career and relationships and you need help with that, BetterHelp is a great place to do it. I mean, I would absolutely recommend therapy if you haven't thought about it before. Something that has helped me, especially taking a little bit of the burden and being able to talk to someone and just saying things out loud a lot of the times was really helpful for me. But it's also just them helping you get the skills and the tools to be able to deal with things in your own life when you're not in therapy, when you're at home and just dealing with things on a day-to-day basis. BetterHelp has been a great help with that for me. So trusting yourself to make decisions that align with your values is like anything. The more you practice, the easier it gets. So if you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. So let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Well, David, we talked about the good parts of this game, and there will be some more good parts to talk about later. But it is time to talk about some of the guys who I think really underachieved in this game, and maybe not entirely their fault, but it starts with Easton Stick. Easton Stick surprised all of us last week, obviously working with a new tandem with Kellen Moore and Doug Nussmeier, right, his new quarterback coach and offensive coordinator. But we're like, hey, it looks like Easton Stick has turned a corner, which is important because the Chargers decided not to bring back Chase Daniel, that veteran backup, right, because they felt Justin Herbert's at the place where he doesn't need that. Easton Stick, after a very good performance in week 1, had a very uneven performance, I would say, in week 2.
Yeah, he definitely, I think uneven is a nice way to kind of put it here, just considering the stats here. It's 21 of 41, which is, I mean, right around 50% completion, 233 yards, no passing touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. The last interception, I don't think we'll really kind of hold on him. He was trying to make a play at the end of the game. But the first one, we definitely will hold against him. I mean, that one was seemingly, a bad decision because he had a receiver underneath that was wide open. He could have got a very nice gain on. Instead, he doesn't see a defender kind of floating over there. He makes a bad throw, and it's easily picked off. And that one was just a bad decision. But I think that was just what happened with Easton. Unfortunately, there's just a couple of things that really didn't go his way tonight.
Yeah, I mean, just super inconsistent. And that's one of the things you were hoping this year going up against preseason competition, that you'd be able to see him kind of iron some of those things out and just be consistently solid. And everyone's going to have a bad game, right? So it's hard to get mad at him for one bad game. But he also did have, some rushing success as well, especially when he needed it. He was good in one of the 2-minute situations that he was in. Really, both of them I thought he was good in. But I think the hard thing was the interception where, to me, it just seemed like he didn't see that dude. Thought he had a bigger gain down the field, threw it to a dude probably in cover 2, kind of sagging off the flats, right? Saw Dean Leonard make a play on the opposite side doing similar to the same thing, but it just didn't seem like he saw him, because if he did see him, I just feel like there's no way that he would have thrown it. It's not an excuse for him. It wasn't good, but he did have the rushing ability, right? 7 carries, 63 yards, got 2 touchdowns. It was great to see Kellen Moore at the end of the first half dialing something up to get his legs involved, because really, at this level, that's one of the things he has that's better than the average quarterback, right? That's one of the skills that he has where he can actually excel in that. They get him in a situation where he is one-on-one with a blocker and a defender in front of him, and he easily gets into the end zone. That was really great to see. Thought at the end, gets the quarterback sneak for a touchdown. Really had the last drive diffused by an incompletion to Elijah Dotson. So I think there's, reason to be concerned about him as the backup. But at the same time, David, I think it has a lot to do with what you expected, right? Like, I still have more faith after 2 preseason games right now than I did when the Chargers decided that they were only going to use Easton Stick as Justin Herbert's primary backup.
No, I agree. I still think that Easton Stick has made some strides, and I feel like he is definitely a more confident player. And, I mean, especially if you want to talk about one of the things I did feel like he did well tonight, when they were operating kind of just on a no huddle situation and just go out there and make a play, I feel like that's when he was at his best. He was making quick decisions. He was making sure the ball was moving down the field. He was scrambling when necessary, and he was getting positive yardage in that way. I feel like when they were huddling up and things were a little bit more structured, he probably just wasn't at his best. And I think part of that was the pocket presence. It wasn't his best tonight. He didn't really feel the pressure. But also, I think we need to understand, Daniel, is This is his first full game that he's played in 4 years. So Easton Stick is allowed to fail. This is valuable tape for him to be able to go back, learn, fix those mistakes, and be able to come back a better player. This is where you want this to happen. This is where this development for your players is going to take place in the preseason. So I think playing this game tonight is going to be valuable in the long run for Easton Stick.
And I also think that, like, if Justin Herbert goes down, the Chargers are pretty screwed anyways, right?
Absolutely.
To be frank,
There's
like,
no question about
it's just
that.
there's always going to be a gigantic gap there. I think the 3 turnovers are concerning, even with the last one being a 4th down throw at the end of the game. I mean, that's the one thing you want to see your backup quarterback not do, right? All that we want him to do is kind of take care of the football and not lose you a game. I think Easton Stick is best, when he has to kind of go all out. But the downside of that, to being that aggressive, is it's going to cost you sometimes, right? When you're kind of playing like every
live and die, right? Live and die.
So bad day for Easton Stick. Bad day. I did have some pressure, right? I think the pressure got to him and made him kind of get out of the
he got
pocket
sacked
on a
5
couple.
times. I mean, he was running a little bit.
And Brandon Staley talked about that in the post-game press conference. And I think that got to him a little bit and made him kind of flush the pocket a couple of times. We didn't see him do last week when he was a little bit more steady and hung in there and made some big-time throws. This week, a lot more inconsistent with the arm. But the rushing attack didn't help either, right? The Chargers' rushing attack really sputtered after going for over 200 yards against the Rams. It's starting to look like the Rams are just a really bad defense, honestly. But this year, it came much back down to earth. Running backs had 15 carries, 57 yards, under 4 yards per carry there. And David, it just felt like there was not a lot of lanes for these guys. And even when there was, it just didn't seem like a super inspired performance for the group as a whole.
Yeah, no, I mean, the Saints' defensive line was getting a ton of penetration in this game. I mean, and it started early. I mean, I think the first couple of drives, I mean, the Chargers went 3 and out. I mean, there was a ton of punts because the Chargers could not get anything going on the ground. It didn't matter who they gave the football to, whether it was whether it was Josh Kelly or Isaiah Spiller. It didn't matter. I mean, nobody really got any kind of traction, and it was a really, really tough start. And so if you can't run the football and you're already behind the down and distance, you're getting put in those predictable passing downs, and the defense can pin their ears back. Even in a vanilla preseason game, they know what's coming. So it did not help at all. But no, nobody that was running the football tonight did particularly well.
Yeah, Josh Kelly, 4 carries, averaged 2.3 yards per carry. Elijah Dotson, 6 carries for 3.5 yards per carry. I mean, those guys really came back down to earth. I think you could say Isaiah Spiller was a bright spot. He did have the 18-yard run, and that was the best run of the night, hands down. Yeah. He made a really good read, had a couple of really, really nice cuts, broke a tackle, and got the Chargers in their first, basically in position for their first touchdown. And I even thought the one that was most impressive to me was like a 2-yard game, but he broke like 4 tackles behind the line of scrimmage to make something out of nothing. I thought he was mildly, impressive in a day that really wasn't impressive for anyone. I think he was the guy that stood out to me. Whereas Elijah Dotson, kind of back to earth a little bit, does have a drop on the last drive that gets them a first down, potentially gives them a chance to win the game. You hate to see that in a big moment. And also just, not too much on the run in the running game as far as room to run.
Yeah, no, I liked that run with Isaiah Spiller, the 18-yarder, because I think when you think of an Isaiah Spiller in your run in your mind, that's what it looks like. Just physical, breaking tackles, bouncing off of guys, and finishing it physically. That is what he is capable of doing, and I expect to see a lot more of that. And Elijah Dotson, he was not able to recreate that same magic from, the first preseason game. But I think one of the things that he did do well, which will, kind of, put a little feather in his cap for the coaches, is he had a pretty good return on special teams. So that's one of the things that, if you want to make this team, really at any position, it starts with what value you're able to bring, and especially special teams is very, very important. So he did do that. Didn't do very much with the rock, but at least he did something positive he can take away from this ball game.
It was tough, too, because, his first run happened, and I was like, oh, here we go. Well, I almost tweeted out.
Here we go again.
All right, here we go, guys. Here's the start of the Elijah Dotson show. Get ready to, jump on the hype train, because, the first run was an 8-yard run, had a nice cut.
Look, really good,
Bowled over a Saints defender who thankfully was okay, but was visibly shaken up because he delivered such a blow. And I was like, whoa, nice read, good vision. And then it was kind of downhill from there a little bit. One of the perceived drops, or one of the ones you could have called a drop, was a high throw from Easton Stick on the last drive as well. A hard catch for running backs to make. Still would like to see him make it, obviously. But either way, the one bad drop was there. I haven't really seen anything about his pass protection or anything, I'd have to go back and watch for that. But we'll see what he does. He's going to have one more week. Did have the nice play on special teams. Still was the only guy to get any kind of run after Josh Kelly and Isaiah Spiller. So I think we'll still have a good chance this week to kind of make his imprint on this offseason and give himself a chance to make the roster. I don't think he has done enough, to put himself out of the conversation with this game. So we do have more guys and standouts to talk about and a couple other guys that maybe didn't live up to where they could have been for this performance. Coming up after this, like Quentin Johnson, I thought, David, good game, right? In and out, 3 catches, no drops, love that. Whereas John Hightower, we were so excited to see him in his first preseason action and kind of went out with a dud. So we're going to get into that coming up right after this. I do need to tell you guys about FanDuel, though, because football season is about to kick off, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to win all season long. That's because right now, when you bet on a Super Bowl winner, you can get bonus bets every time they win in the regular season. So if you want to go for the Chargers, they are plus 2,100 right now to win the Super Bowl. They're about 8th or 9th as far as the odds go. And if they win throughout the regular season, you can win on them. Just pick any team to win the Super Bowl, and you'll get bonus bets for every victory. And you can use your bonus bets on spreads, play your props, over-unders, and so much more. And right now, you can already bet on week 1. We're that close to football season. We're that close to real Chargers football. Only one more preseason game to go. They are currently 2.5-point favorites over their now rival Miami Dolphins, led by Tua Tagovailoa. So excited about that and excited about FanDuel doing this. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Thank you guys again, especially staying up late and especially, with tropical storms and everything about. I'm just thankful that the power is on for me and we're able to get here for this show. Hopefully everyone is safe out there. But thank you to the everydayers for being back in here late and coming to watch the show because there was a lot to talk about. Yeah, of course. We always appreciate you guys. Ooh, David, who do you start with? I think let's start with Quentin Johnson, right? Because one of the biggest storylines from week 1 was a couple drops, right? And that was what we were concerned about with him coming out, which was not great to see. But he ended things last week on a high note, and I thought we kind of saw that bleed into this week a little bit. I mean, the offense couldn't get anything going early, but the first time they actually felt like they started to get into a rhythm, it was kind of spurred by Quentin Johnson with a couple of nice catches, a couple of nice routes, and I thought that he had a very clean game, and they got him out of there quickly.
I agree. Yeah, I remember I put a post out saying that Quentin Johnson was the catalyst of this offensive drive, and I truly believe it. I mean, 3 catches on 3 targets for 37 yards, but I think most importantly is 2 of those catches were 15 and 16 yards respectively. So really, really getting those chunk plays, and that's what you want. That's what you're excited about with Quentin Johnston. Yeah, you get him in there, get a couple of catches, some good, strong plays, good routes, getting open on those routes, and then getting out of the ball game, feeling good about yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I thought on his 2 bigger catches, I think he showed a lot because the first one was against man coverage, and he found a way at the top of the route to create separation with a couple of dekes, found a way to get open and made a strong catch over the middle, finished with some contact afterwards too, was able to maintain the catch. Love to see that. And then going up later on against the zone defense, he found a way to find that soft spot in the zone. Did a great job sitting down exactly equidistant from the 3 defenders closest to him. And I thought that was a really good sign too. That's something that takes a little bit, being able to find your way in zone coverage, especially for someone that's raw like Quentin Johnston. Yeah. I thought that was really nice to see. No drops. You love to see it. Quentin Johnston, I mean, I thought this was a much cleaner game from him than week 1. I liked what I saw from him. I also think that a big storyline wide receiver-wise going into this game was what we were going to see from John Hightower. I mean, he had what Daniel Popper had is the 8 receiving touchdowns before he got hurt in Chargers training camp. I mean, he had 4 that were 50-plus yarders. He was the guy that was the talk of training camp early on, potentially with a chance to take that Jalen Guyton role because Jalen Guyton has not made it off the PUP list, but was out there, and that's another thing we'll talk about another day. Maybe he will be back soon to put some more kind of spice into this competition. But John Hightower, David, a very, very tough preseason debut. 1 catch on 6 targets, 10 yards. Obviously, we were hoping we could have saw a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, with him, it's all about the explosive, man. You're supposed to be bringing the big plays. You're supposed to be attacking the deep part of the field, and unfortunately, you were not able to do that in this football game. And so, yeah, I mean, it just doesn't give you a lot of confidence right now in that spot and in that role kind of in the Chargers wide receiver room is, who is really going to be that guy? I mean, is there somebody who's going to just be a placeholder at this point for Jalen Guyton when he is able to make it back? Just because I don't know if there's anybody that's really been able to take that spot and separate themselves.
They haven't. I mean, I think that the guy that would be closest to that and the guy who, availability is the best ability kind of is proven with is Keelan Doss, who comes in and has a very unassuming 3 for 42 in this game, but had a couple really nice catches, had one going to the ground, had a couple of conversions.
Had a catch for 23 yards.
23-yard catch. I thought he's been solid, and he was solid in both games. He wasn't flashy in either game, but I think if there is a guy that's wide receiver 6 right now based on production this offseason and what they've been able to do in the preseason games, I think it's Keelan Doss right now, but he doesn't necessarily fit that field stretcher speed profile that I think we were kind of hoping would that spot would be slotted for. Someone like a Jalen Guyton, someone like a John Hightower.
Yeah, he's just not that arch type, right? Yeah.
No, he's not. And I mean, for John Hightower's game, this was kind of a tough game to evaluate him, right? The offensive line wasn't holding up very well, especially on the outside. A lot of pressure to deal with. And it just also seemed like him and Easton Stick had no chemistry at all. They just
there just wasn't much separation either. He just didn't generate a ton of separation as well.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll have to go back and watch the all 22 when I get it right to see what, he looked like on a snap-to-snap basis. But as far as production and making a statement like, hey, I'm still here. I missed last week with an injury, but I'm still kind of in this conversation. It didn't happen. But I did like what I saw from Darius Davis, too, who, like Elijah Dotson, also had a very nice kickoff return in this game with one kind of big faux pas. He had a muff punt. And even though it went out of bounds, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's still, not a great look. But I did think, late in the game, he got on the field offensively and showed again that he can kind of make an impact in that regard.
There's just nobody on the field that moves like him. I mean, nobody on the Chargers roster offensively has that kind of speed and quickness and acceleration, and it's clear. I mean, he can absolutely separate. The only thing that you worry about with Darius Davis is just the hits. And, is he going to be able to stay upright and on the field over the course of a 17-game season on offense? I don't know if we're quite ready for that, but I was very encouraged by his performance. 3 catches on 3 targets for 24 yards. Like I said, I thought he protected himself well. He got open and made his catches, so made some plays, helped the offense stay on the field.
Yeah, I thought he did well. I mean, I don't expect a ton from him. I think he can play in the slot and a pinch, for a limited amount of snaps if that's what you want for him. I think he's showing, hey, he is a wide receiver too, right? Not a wide receiver too. He's a wide receiver also, and isn't, unusable if you need to use him on the field, even though he's a smaller dude. Yeah, you don't want to see him take those big hits. The biggest hit he took all night was on the muff punt when after it fell, he took a big hit after that, but seemed to get back up pretty good. Brandon Staley talked about that after the first game. Hey, he avoided big hits for the most part. That's going to be one of the big determinations of kind of how he can play offensively. But there were a couple of guys on the defense that thought stood out, David, a couple of other standouts I want to get into at the end of this show here, because you had a guy in Taiwan Mullen that you thought was really making some plays out there. I liked what Scott Matlock had as well. I mean, I think there were a couple other guys who might not have had excellent games, but I thought had pretty good games too.
Yeah, I mean, Taiwan Mullen just been a guy who's been coming in at the back end of football games and quietly just been playing really, really good football. I think he's been really tight in coverage. I think he was tight in coverage tonight. I feel like he made some really strong tackles in space. He had 6 tackles and 1 pass defensed, and he showed up on special teams as well. So Taiwan Mullen, I thought, stringing together really good performances and really, I think, putting himself in good position to maybe get a practice squad spot.
The special teams are going to be everything, and I think kind of what opens up the pathway for this is Kamon Hall getting injured and obviously being waived with an injury designation by the Chargers. He was the guy that was kind of that next corner after Jasir Taylor and Dean Leonard. Jasir Taylor in this game be on a gigantic play at the end of the half. You hate to see that, giving up points at the end of the half. In great coverage. Like Jasir Taylor, maybe it's kind of one of those Michael Davis situations. You get your head around in time, when we first saw Michael Davis. You can start making some plays because most of these plays that are against him are happening in great coverage. Did bounce back.
Dean Leonard, I thought, was pretty decent, too, in this game. I thought he played pretty well on a couple of snaps.
Yeah, Dean Leonard with that nice pass breakup, got a hand on a ball early in the game. I thought that was nice to see.
He's been impressive. Real.
Yeah, I mean, his speed is definitely real. But that was just him kind of being instinctual, kind of, hey, there's nobody here for me to cover. Let me fall back in coverage.
Yeah.
And he took away what would have been likely a big reception by the Saints offense. So I liked what I saw from Dean Leonard. Scott Matlock, energy guy, right? Love to see the energy from someone
like
Scott
a man
Matlock.
With his hair on fire.
Yeah, man, and just the motor to make a tackle on a running back on a screen play to chase
That
him
was
from
super
behind.
impressive.
I mean,
Super
Brandon,
impressive.
look at Brandon Staley in the post-game press conference to see how he felt about that play.
Yes.
By Scott Matlock. And shout out to CJ Okoye as well. Shout out to Stone Smart, some guys we didn't get into today. And
Yeah.
we'll have more time to get into tomorrow and going forward. But thank you guys for checking out today's show. As always, we appreciate the everydayers out there, and to make sure you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. You can also find us every day on all of our social media. You can find our show on X or Twitter at Locked On LAC, and you can find me at Dan Talk Sports and Dave Drugmeyer at Dro Talk SD. You can also find us on our Locked On Chargers Facebook page and at Locked On Chargers on Instagram. A lot to get into, David. I doubt there was definitely some very bright spots. It'll be interesting to see how the practices go going forward, because we're not going to be able to hear as much from them. But one more preseason game on Friday night, and then a huge swath of cuts are going to happen. So a lot to get into this week. Excited to have you guys and be here with you guys every day of the week. But that's going to do it. We will be back with you guys tomorrow as always. But until then, take it easy and go Bolts.